Exciting times, guys. Exciting times. So I just did yesterday. Um, I did my first open mic night, baby. Amateur open micer right here. Can I put stand up comedian in my bio? I think not. Not yet. Not yet. I wish I could, but not yet. Um, so let me tell you a little bit about this experience. So first off, I have wanted to try stand-up comedy for a long time. I I'm 28 now. And I've always loved comedy. And, ever since I was a kid, always a jokester. And when I was in my early 20s, God, I can't believe I can even say that now because it's almost a decade ago. But in my late teens, early 20s, when I was in college, I started watching a lot of YouTube specials. It's funny, YouTube really only became huge back when I was, getting out of high school. So that's when all this shit really took off. And I would watch comedy specials, old comedy specials, new comedy specials. And when I was in China, I spent a lot of time watching comedy. And I was like, man, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm really going to do this. I remember I even got home from China in the car with my dad, and I tell him I think I'm gonna try stand up comedy, and he just looks at me like, okay, that's random as shit. And first off, that's random as shit. Secondly, I don't care. No, he didn't say I don't care, but I could tell he was very much like, okay, that's kind of random. You just got back from living in China for a year, and the first thing out of your mouth is, I want to try stand up comedy. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? So anyway, and I wanted to try it back then. I was 21. And I remember I didn't do it, right? I didn't do it in college because I was too busy fucking off in college. Don't get me wrong. I was doing some cool stuff, having a great time, getting some ladies. I remember my first real serious girlfriend as well, talking to her about it. And she's like, so when are you going to try it? I remember her one time like telling me, like asking me like when I was going to do it. I could tell she wasn't too enthused about my life path. But I think had I tried it, I think she would have found that respectful, but I never tried it. I was also, once you start working, it's so hard to, especially depending on what you do for work. But once you start working in like real jobs, or like when work starts taking up most of your time, it's really hard to do that kind of stuff, like try new things like that, especially when you're younger, like when you're in your early 20s or mid 20s, you just now starting off in new jobs. You get sucked into a lot of momentum really dictates a lot of things in our lives. The people who you're around, you get sucked into the groove of life. So before you know it, I am now 28 years old. And for the last 2 years, I was like reminding myself like, oh, dude, actually for the last year or so, I was like, oh, remember, Taylor, you want to try stand-up comedy, right? Like you want to try it. Like you've been saying that you want to try it for so long, and you ain't done it yet because you're a gigantic pussy. And I even remember last year, I was I was having a conversation with my friend. I had just made a big change in my work life, and I said, dude, stand-up comedy, man, I'm gonna try it. Never did. Total bitch move. Don't know why I got the wild hair up my ass now, especially because literally like a month ago I was telling myself, oh, I don't need to do stand-up comedy. I don't need to do this, even though like really I really wanted to do it. So fast forward to last night. I did it, guys. I fucking did it. Sorry it took so long to get there. Let me go ahead and describe the scene a little bit for you, since this is my podcast. And even though I care if you're bored, I also don't care because it's my podcast. Though I do care because I want you to listen. but it is my podcast. So anyway, let me describe. I go to this bar down the that I used to live next to or close to, called the Jive Bar, and it's so funny. I knew they had an open mic for years, since 2014, 2015. Drove by there and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna go in there and do an open mic. Never did, but this time I did. So I find myself last night driving down there at whatever time, 8 or 9 o'clock, to sign up. And I'd never been there before. So I go inside and it's a bar. So I go inside and they got like hip hop and stuff blasting. And I'm like, holy shit. So I've got to be honest. My first thought was hip hop blasting, bar. This probably isn't going to be my demographic, if you know what I mean. So I'm thinking this could be interesting. But once I get inside, I notice it's a good mix of people. So I'm like, okay, all right. And the bar wasn't crowded or anything. I mean, it was a fucking Tuesday night. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of people out. And there wasn't. It was a decent amount of people on a bar in the suburbs on a Tuesday night. And I go to the bar because I'm fucking nervous as shit and I don't know where else to go. I asked the guy, when's the sign up? So this place, you signed up, 30 minutes before the show starts. So the guy at the bar tells me, hey, they'll pass something around shortly. In the meantime, I went ahead and took down 2 shots. I took down a shot of some shit, and then I took down a shot of some other shit. And it was both whiskey. And that really helped because I was definitely nervous. And while I was there waiting, I got there at around 9, just before 9:30, and I probably waited about 30, 45 minutes before the show started. I probably waited about 15 minutes before we signed up, and then another 15, 20 minutes easy before the show started. And during that time, I saw another young dude in there, and a little bit taller than me, but definitely thinner, long hair, kind of a hippie looking dude, but definitely had some cool vibes. And so I go up to him and ask him like about how long, about something about the show. We get talking and man, it was cool as shit. So me and this guy are talking, shooting the shit. And of course, he listens to Joe Rogan. He knows about, some of the great comedians, Bill Burr, Andrew Schultz. I feel like Joe Rogan and some of these other guys have heavily influenced the comedy scene more than they'll ever know. They probably have so many people trying stand-up for the first time because of them, because of like people like Bobby Lee and Joe Rogan and all of them encouraging other people to try it. So we're talking about all that stuff, getting along really good. And then the show starts. So hold on a minute. I'll go into some details about the show after this ad. So once the show starts, so before the show started, actually, I had been, the MC got us together, the people who had never done it before, which was me and it was me and like maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 other people. It was our first time. And he said, here's the deal. It's, 5 to 7 minutes max, that's the upper range of what you can shoot for. Kind of laid down the rules. He described that basically everybody had signed up, but he said that there are 2 tiers above the above the regular open micers, like myself. Even though I'm not regular, but I'm regular, like I'm a normal person. There were 2 tiers. There were regulars who, are people that have more open mic experience, or who might even be like kind of like road comics, but they're regulars. And then headliners. So people that do headlining gigs will go first, or people who are headliners will go first, then the regulars, then just your open mic fucks like myself. So for a good hour and a half, I'm watching regulars go for about 10 minutes a piece, because that's only about 5, 6 guys I saw that were headliners and regulars that were good. They were pretty good. And, don't get me wrong, they weren't great. There were a couple really good acts that I really enjoyed. And I'll tell you what, if you've never done an open mic and you want to try one out, I might have just been lucky because I would like to try another one tonight. Don't know if I will, but I would like to. I might have got lucky. But the thing that I liked about the open mic that I did was that because all these people went before you, it was actually it was funny and it was fun. So I laughed. There were plenty of times where I got good laughs. And that, to be honest, for me, that made a big difference. I felt much more comfortable. I was like, oh, this is fun. This is fun. This isn't oh, I'm nervous. I'm going to go up and give a speech and I'm super nervous. This is oh, everyone's having a great time. So then it's going to be my turn to have fun. So, after watching the regulars, I got some good laughs. And then then we started the open micers, the super amateur open micers like myself and a couple other guys. I was number 4, I think. So a couple guys go up before me. And it's so funny. You could immediately tell the difference, right? So you've got the headliners that kind of go around, and you got the regulars, and then you got the amateurs, super amateurs like myself, and the level just drops precipitously. But it wasn't horrible. That was the thing, is that even guys that I saw that had only done a few times or a couple times who had jokes. And that was really cool to see. The guy that went up before me, that me and him were shooting the shit for a while, really cool guy, cool guy club. It was so interesting, the different styles, because there's kind of joke style, jokey joke, where you set up a joke, punchline, and then you've got other people that are more storytelling. So I find I am more of a storyteller, and this guy before me was more of he sets up a joke, punchline, and it was really interesting to see, because I got to see a guy who had only gone up 3 or 4 times total and had probably about 4 or 5 minutes of actual material. Now, of course, this wasn't premium material. It wasn't grade A shit. But if you are a novice, if you've never done stand-up before, or if you are just somebody who watches stand-up but you've never tried, which is redundant for me to say already. But anyway, if you've never done it before and you saw that guy go up, you're like, damn, dude, that guy's got some chops, especially against the backdrop of what I've heard. So when I listen to stand-up, I love listening to stand-up comedians podcasts like Your Mom's House, Chris D'Elia, Joe Rogan, Bobby Lee. So you hear I listened to Tony Hinchcliffe the other day on somebody's podcast talk about how the first time he went up, he forgot all of his material and ended up just saying some other shit that ended up doing really well because he was just honest about some stuff. And I thought, oh, wow. So, and I've heard so many stories about comedians, their first time bombing, doing shitty, not doing well. So to see people go up there for their first few times and not bomb, don't get me wrong, people weren't getting a lot of laughs. But to have some jokes, recognizable jokes, to me was impressive. So once the regulars got up there, or the super amateurs like myself, got up there, it was really cool to watch. It was fun. And when I got up there, I had about 2, I guess I'd like to say is, I finally understand what a bit is. I used to not really understand what a bit is, except it's a joke. But now I get it. A bit I get what a bit is. It's kind of like a whole scenario where you can pull multiple jokes out of it. It could be a story, it could be a scenario, whatever. So I had about 3 bits that I was working on, and one of those bits was actually decent, but it was super underdeveloped. And so, but anyway, I went up there and I did it, and it was fun. I got a couple laughs. Several of my jokes did not go anywhere. A couple of my jokes did. And that's all that mattered, man. And afterwards, I was like, whoa, I did it. I couldn't believe I fucking did it. So that was really cool. And afterwards, I watched other comics go up. And there were some good guys, man. And when I say good, I mean like for amateurs. There were guys that had some good amateur content. And it was fun. I stayed for as long as I could. And I'll tell you what, I'm super glad I did it. And what I want to say to anybody out there if you want to do it, right? If you really want to do it, fucking do it. I have wanted to try stand-up comedy for easily, I can say 100%, I've wanted to try it for 7 years. Ever since, I think it was probably about the time I turned 21 years old is about the time that I was like, when I go back to the States, because I was in China when I turned 21, but that was about the time where I was really taking in a lot of comedy. And so that was when I said I was going to try stand-up comedy. And I waited 7 years, made excuses for myself all the time. You know, sometimes I just straight up forgot. And other times I just pussied out. And I pussied out a few times this year. But it worked out, it just worked out for now. And also, it's so funny because I have a different kind of life experience now. So some of the things that I can talk about, I just wouldn't have been able to put together back when I was 21, back when I was 24 or 25 even. And so I'm in a different headspace now. And I think that is something to think about. And I want to take this second to go into a little tangent, which is, you know, I'm in an interesting period of my life. And I think a lot of people might be able to relate with this, which is I am in a point where I'm kind of I want to say I'm at like this really high level of trying shit. So, you know, like I'm trying this podcast. I tried doing live streams, which I still might get back to, but I didn't like what I was doing with those. So I'm going to kind of reassess and come back. I'm doing other podcasts. I'm doing English language podcasts because, you know, I teach English online and I'm developing my own kind of, it's not a course, but it's a podcast for people who want to improve their English. That's actually it's Taylor Teaches English. So you can find that. If you know somebody, Spanish speaker, anybody else who wants to improve their English. I have launched a couple of other podcasts unrelated to this kind of a deal. I started blogging. I've done a lot of stuff this year and the last 2 years. You know, last year I started doing salsa dancing, signed back up for Chinese class. So, and I'm not saying this to brag. What I'm trying to get at is that the last year and a half have been a whole lot of putting myself out there. And I can honestly say, without a doubt, it has been the most rewarding that I've had in the last probably 6 years or so, 6 or 7 years. I mean, when I was in college, I had some great times because, like, you know, going to China, my senior year at A&M, I was also really adventurous and had a really good time. But then after I graduated, you know, I got pushed into the corporate world, or I walked into the corporate world. And then honestly, the last several years have been a grind. And there's nothing wrong with the grinding, but it's just been very, very tough at times, and sometimes very dull, and sometimes feeling like I was stuck in a trap I couldn't get out of. And so this most recent time of my life, being able to do so many different things has been unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, though, at the same time, it's been frustrating because not everything works. And so I've done things and tried things that don't work, whether it be asking women out, whether it be launching a podcast, whether it be trying some new shit that just doesn't go anywhere. And, you know, I don't know if this podcast will go anywhere, but all I can say is that if you really want to do some shit, if it's something you really want to do, not just something you think is a good idea, because those are two different things that I've learned. Like, I really wanted to start studying Chinese again. And I'll tell you what, the benefit that I get from it cognitively is enormous. Sometimes I question about the amount of time I spend studying it. Yes. But I love it. And that's all I need. And when I say that's all I need, I mean, that's the only reason I need to do it. Don't let motherfuckers tell you not to do shit you love because there's no financial gain at the end of the tunnel. Fuck that noise, dude. First off, you don't know the future. So with that knowledge of uncertainty alone, you never know what learning and studying things you love could open up for you in the future. You never know. The salsa dancing shit has been incredible. Absolutely incredible. I love it. And so if you love doing some stuff, do it. As long as it doesn't, here's the thing is, the way I see it is like this. Limit your downside. And then from there, do the things you love. So what I mean by that is, don't put yourself don't go into debt to go on a vacation because you really want to go on a vacation, right? What I'm saying is if you really want to go to a place, figure out how to do it and then do it. But don't fuck your life up doing it, right? It's like I said with Chinese, I'm not fucking up my life at all by studying it. I'm not fucking up my life at all by going out and salsa dancing on Saturday nights, okay? So that's what I'm saying. Try things that you love, and even if it's a big deal, just limit your downside and go for it. And that's, honestly, it's so funny. I'm not old enough or wise enough to give much more advice beyond that. And I can only tell you that from a little of the experience I have, but also from the really cool books I've read, like Taleb, or, somebody like Scott Adams, who isn't a big fan of Taleb because Taleb called him on his bullshit. I really liked what Scott Adams said in his book, How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. Was one thing he talked about was how it's important to have things that you do simply for fun. He didn't say simply for fun, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like you've got to have things that charge your batteries. And that's what I was talking about with do hobbies that you enjoy. Try things that you love because those will give your life in times of difficulty. They'll give you things to look forward to. And sometimes that's what you need, especially in this day and age where we're all so atomized and lonely all the fucking time. So anyway, guys, my first time stand-up experience was awesome. I didn't do that great, but guess what? I also didn't suck horribly. So it was good. I plan on doing more. And if it's something you want to do, do it. Go online, find a place in your area, and fucking try it. Anyway, that's all I got for today, guys. You can follow me on YouTube, Taylor Space Stutch. You can go to my website, tstutch.com. Email me, tayradio1@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, tstutch1. And thank you very much, guys. Have a great day.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.